Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. So today, guys, I have a very special guest with me, Byron Lee. For those of you guys that haven't yet, make sure that you guys check the link down below this video for really part one of this series. So the last video that we did together was all about the SEO proposal template and the system that Byron's using to close between 50 and 80% of people that just agree to a competition analysis. I can't stress enough, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go do that first. Like, stop this right now, go watch that first. Today, we're going to be answering some frequently asked questions, getting to know a little bit more about Byron. Last time, we kind of just jumped right into the whole process and gave you guys all the guts. I mean, it was all the meat of how we're actually doing this stuff. So we want to do a little bit of an intro. We want to talk about how Byron's getting his leads. The theory that that we have of kind of the top 100 in the marketplace. We want to talk about some of the biggest rebuttals that we're getting, why we're getting them, how we answer those rebuttals, as well as the last thing I want to kind of end with how we're kind of doing some lead gen stuff with this as well, kind of highlight some deals, how we're breaking down the pricing and things of that nature, because I know you guys are following me. You guys love the local lead gen stuff, the pay per lead stuff, pay per call stuff. So we thought we'd throw that in there as well. So cool. Without further ado, Byron, let's jump right in. I want to know a little bit about you. How long you been in this kind of—
Yeah, man. Well, I've been.
We can kind of go from there.
Cool. I think I first built my first website at like 14. So I mean, that's kind of when I got into coding and things. So as far as business wise, 17, 18, I would post flyers and stuff out in my local area, get some business. So I really started building websites. So it's been over 10 years. Everything's evolved, excuse me, quite a bit since then. The last 7 years been really doing SEO heavily. And, you know, I got into the conversion side of it to where these business owners wanted more business instead of just a website. And that's the obvious path to follow. And then the last year or two into more of the straight up lead gen. So, you know, we're doing SEO, but the goal is to generate the leads rather than just have a monthly retainer and, you know, have money going down the drain. They actually know where the source of this cash is, you know, what it's actually producing. So that's kind of the history.
I think what you said is really interesting. Number one, first off, you started out in web design and web development. I think so many of us kind of start in that space because I think it's like the most logical progression. Like, how do you get in? This is the easiest way. We have to learn how to build the sites anyway, so we might as well figure that out. Once we do, you know, get paid to actually do it. And the second thing that I loved about what you said is, you know, after that, you kind of went into SEO and conversion stuff. And now, you know, you've been focusing more on the lead gen stuff. While you're still going after SEO clients, you've been focusing more on the lead gen. And I think that's kind of the natural progression that everybody should have, right? I don't recommend that anybody starts out with pay per lead right out of the gate. Okay, and the reason being is, you know, if you start out like we did, if you start out with web design, some web development, and start, you know, charging people for SEO services, you're essentially getting paid to learn, right? I mean, what other job can you go out and just get paid and paid really substantially, right? Not get paid like an employee, and essentially use that to actually do your testing and to learn everything. So I thought that was neat.
Well, some of my best learning experiences came from paying clients. And, you know, it's not the fact that we were doing a horrible job or anything. It's the fact that learning what drives the correct traffic to produce leads and what doesn't, you know, where to focus and where not to focus. And, you know, there's always failures coming in that create your successes. But I mean, like you said, you can essentially get paid CEO level pay and you're learning along the way. You know, you're not really, you don't have to sit and work a job every day. You're still getting compensated very well, but you have the learning experience. So
definitely. I always recommend that. And I know people kind of get turned off by that answer, but that's the truth. I mean, you should get paid until you know what you're doing, right? Until you know how to rank, until you know how to do the things that you're going to need to do in a pay per lead business. You really need to start and just, you know, get some money in your pocket, right? Get that stability, figure out how things work, and get paid to learn, and then jump into pay per lead. So definitely love that.
Absolutely.
So what's kind of the breakdown now in terms of your client base? SEO stuff, lead gen stuff, pay per lead. Like, what's that look like? right now?
Yeah, it's mostly, it's kind of 70-30, 80-20, with the somewhere around there, with the majority still being the standard SEO clients. We have a lot of legacy clients we've had on for quite a while. We're still onboarding web design deals every now and then, which usually leads into SEO, or lately PPL if it's an industry that makes sense. So I'd say that other 20-30% is PPL. I'm trying to focus on straight lead gen campaigns rather than SEO. Not because SEO isn't viable. It's just because, selling the PPL stuff is a little more simple, straightforward. And that's just kind of what the business model is. But not all business models, or industries, can be catered to that PPL. So there's some instances where, your $2,000 a month retainer is the solution. And then there's some instances where $100 per call is the solution. So it still kind of depends.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. And what's kind of your minimum in terms of SEO deals? Like what's the smallest that you'll charge? I think this is always a good topic that people are always asking about.
Yeah, that's one of my most frequently asked questions. So usually for any sort of national level, if you're corporate based, or if you're servicing people in like the US or the UK, we're usually at 1,500, 2,000, just because of the nature of the campaign. And that's pretty low on the spectrum as far as a national. Some of the local stuff, if it's a city, let's say 100,000 to 200,000 people, or maybe below, we can do 800 to 1,000. But generally speaking, in the local stuff, we're at least 1,000, 1,200. So it's kind of all similar minimums. But once we get into the average number of our campaigns, we're looking at 3,000 to 5,000 for national. And for instance, like the campaigns that we're not doing PPL on, if it's a service industry or something, I mean, we're looking at about 1,500, 2,000 for that. So, and we try to pre-qualify them and target them to where we're getting businesses who they're already positioned in their industry enough that they understand this, and they're already kind of in the top status to where they understand that putting this money down every month is going to improve their business, and they see the long-term plan. Working with people who don't see that plan usually blows up in your face. And that's just from experience. It's not, not me talking like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I've had campaigns blow up in my face. So.
Definitely. I think that there's a lesson in all, just in that alone. I think that nobody should be doing SEO for less than $1,000 a month. If somebody can't afford $1,000 a month, I mean, they're not your client.
Agreed.
And there's a good chance that it will blow up in your face. So I say $1,000 minimum. And when you get to the point where it's getting harder to scale, right? You're starting to really getting to the point of just, you have a good amount of clients and it's getting harder and harder to scale. That's when you raise your prices.
Yes.
Right. And because you don't have to close as many clients. Right. Nope. And that's where you start to really, really make just a crazy return on investment because you're able to double or triple your pricing. I had a student of mine over 2 years. I met with them very frequently. They were a go-getter, and essentially they kept coming to me and asking for my help in their business. And every single time that they came to me, I said the same thing. So they'd take me out to dinner, we'd have a good time, and they'd say, here's what I'm doing, here's my problem. And every single time I would just say, raise your price, right? And literally 2 years, they went from doing like 150 to 200,000 a year to over 800 grand a year, just, cusping almost to the $1 million mark. Just by raising their prices, right? And every single time they came to me, the problem is they couldn't take on more clients. It was like they were just, having a hard time just treading water and just doing what, satisfying the clients that they did have. And so just raising your prices like that is an easy way to just explode your business. Well,
when you're getting those 500 to 1,000 a month, or even below 500, which is absolutely insane. But when you're in that range, I know a lot of SEOs are, and a lot of the time you're doing the same amount of work and getting paid $500 a month, when you could be, if you're actually doing the work correctly and you're providing traffic and leads and conversions for that client, they're honestly doing well, and they're banking that money, and their business is improving while you're you're getting $500 a month. And, it's in business, it should be a win-win thing. If you're getting $2,000 a month retainer, they should be getting X amount of business over the top of that, but you make money and they make money. And the business owners I talk to who understand that, they get it. Everybody's, obviously we're not sitting at a computer all day to just, we're not playing games. We're running a business. So you definitely have to pay attention to your pricing. And as soon as we started increasing our pricing, you get a few more no's, but that percentage was actually surprisingly small compared to what I thought, So it was the same people who will spend $500 a month. They might spend $1,000 or $1,500 a month. You just got to ask, basically.
Yep. So if you're at that place right now, real quick tip, if you're at that place right now in your business where you're having trouble just treading water, you got a handful of clients, right? What I would do is suggest putting in a new minimum. Okay. And go out, sell 1 or 2 more deals, and then go back to your new clients, or your old clients, that are under that minimum. Okay. And just tell them, I can't currently work with any clients under $1,000 a month or under $1,500 a month. It's just not feasible for my company. We're growing too fast. I brought on new, clients, and we can't allocate the resources to your project. In order for me to do that, I have to staff up. I would love to keep working with you, but our new minimum is this. Right. And it's funny, when you push people away, what happens, right? They come pulling back to you, right? They're like, what can I do? How can how can we continue to work together? When you push them away, it makes them that's how your business run them away, and see what happens. They're going to come running back. I see you shaking your head over there.
Absolutely. Sorry, my internet was a little screwed up, but.
Let's keep this thing going. So when you're prospecting, what are you doing to get your leads? What are your favorite methods? Obviously, we shared with everybody some cold call scripts, some warm call scripts, some BNI strategies, or any type of meetup strategy. Favorite strategies?
What I usually like to do is, first and foremost, all of those are within the strategies that I use. I mean, BNI meetup groups are great. Cold calling, when I have my sales guys, they're cold calling. And of course, the BNI and the meetups, the ratio of client closes versus how many you call is always greater. Cold calling, it's its own animal, but results do come from that. Some of our favorite strategies are, they're targeting specific businesses based on some sort of criteria. So whether we are reaching out to them, and this can include cold calling as well. It can include emailing or contacting them with their contact information, or like direct mailing even. And so if they meet a certain criteria, let's say if we can gather a list with certain income criteria for a revenue criteria, or just a certain area and a certain level of reviews that they have or whatnot. We usually try to target a certain group of businesses, send them a really customized message, and we get a high response rate back. And that's usually happening all the time on a fairly mass scale now, just because the only way to really close business is to have prospects in front of you. If a month goes by and I don't talk to anybody, you don't close anybody. So that doesn't happen anymore, because we're always sending out solicitations and messages and things like that constantly. And so that's one of the best ways to get business in the pipeline, and to get prospects on the phone, or in a screencast, or however you're presenting to them. You've got to talk to them, you've got to make contact. So that's the most important thing. And then the next layer, like I said, is specializing that contact to where, even if you're targeting like 500 businesses or 100 businesses, it's a specialized contact. That's usually where we see the best results. So if you see a need that they're spending a lot in PPC, but they're not ranking well organically, talk to them about SEO. That it's an obvious hole in their business that it's a void that you can help fill that void.
Cool. So getting leads, I mean, you guys are basically doing everything. There is no
Yeah.
one trick pony, which I think is super important. Most people try to focus on one thing and that's it. And if it doesn't work, they just kind of throw their hands up in the air and oh well. So I think that's super important. You kind of multi-touch points you talked about a little bit, but we'll talk about that. I think one of the things that I always push people and I always kind of bring up and talk to people about is really the concept of proactive versus reactive. Like you said, if you don't do anything for a month, you're not going to have any conversations. You're not going to actually sell anybody, right? So that pipeline needs to be being built and running all of the time. And that's super important that you have that pipeline down and built. And I know that, there's not many people that have a pipeline quite like yours. What are you guys kind of generating in terms of averages in a monthly or, weekly base in terms of incoming leads that at least raise their hand and say, yes, I want to talk to you?
We every month, and it's usually growing, especially the last couple years when we figured out, I mean, this is the way to constantly get clients. We're looking at anywhere between, 1,000 to 2,000 a month is not out of the realm. It's been over 2,000 leads, and a lead is, there's a couple different ways to define leads. I guess these are technically prospects because they've shown interest. And so they said, hey, send us a proposal. What does it cost? Or what is it going to take to do this? Depending on the solicitation that we send them or the initial contact. If it's SEO, if it's PPL, it's crafted a little bit differently, but all we want to get is that response from them that says, yeah, we'd love to take a look at what you can offer us. And so, we're looking at, like I said, up to 2,000, sometimes a little over that a month. And that's, it feeds our pipeline to where it's completely full and then some. And we're not able to service everybody, unfortunately. There's certain times where there's just an overflow. So.
Yeah, dealing with 2,000 people that are raising their hand in some regard is difficult. So that's awesome. That's a hell of a goal for everybody too. 2,000 or so, let's say, just call it 2,000 a month. That's crazy, right? No wonder you have a business that's scaling and that is successful and is just growing and growing and growing. So I do know that I'm going to put you on the spot here. I do know that every once in a while you open up when you have overages. You just have too many leads to handle. Is there any way that that we could clue my crew in when you guys have overages?
Yeah, we can do that. It's usually every so often we've got, honestly, a few hundred, or maybe even if we have 100 or 150, to where what we're doing in our pipeline is we're just going down the list. We're taking leads, contacting them, taking leads, contacting them. So there's really nobody filtering them as far as big fish or anything like that. And we've pulled some massive deals out just randomly. And the fact that we do have that overflow, it's someone might as well service them, because we sure can't all the time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. 2,000 a month, that's just crazy.
Yep.
So if it's cool with you, after this, I'm going to put a link just for a little opt-in, no big pitch or internet marketing launch or anything crazy like that. But we'll just grab some opt-ins of people that are interested, and I'll send them over to you. And whenever you have availability, if you could just let them know, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I don't think there's many people that would turn down some leads that you can't service.
Exactly. These are the same exact ones that I service, and it's how I've grown my business. So like I said, the contact is key. You talk to prospects, you're going to close a certain percentage of people. Even if your sales skills are absolutely horrible, you talk to people, you're going to get sales. It's a no-brainer.
Cool, man. So let's move on. Let's talk about this top 100 strategy.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that I see a lot of my students, a lot of my friends doing is they'll get excited. They'll do some campaign, right? So they'll do some type of prospecting campaign, whether it be direct mail or email or phone, whatever that is, right? Whatever that campaign is, they do it once, it goes out, and it's either a success or it's a fail. And they don't really maximize the follow-up opportunities that they have. It's just, yes, it worked, or no, it didn't work, and kind of on to the next. And so I wanted to talk about this concept that we were talking about the other day, and with the top 100. So essentially the concept is in any major market, in any major niche, there's going to be about 100 people or more. I mean, some niches you're going to find a lot more. Some niches you're not going to find as many. But let's just call it the top 100. Whenever you're going after a market, you guys should know who those top 100 people are. Okay, you shouldn't use the list once and let it go. You should keep recycling that list and using it, right? Multi-step, multi-follow-up, different channels. I mean, how many of you guys have gotten a list and done email or done direct mail, but only done one of them and sent it out and was like, it worked or it didn't work and kind of moved on? I mean, you guys did all the hard work to get all of the leads. You need to take them properly through a sequence that hits them in multi-channels and just follows up with them multiple times. If you're only sending out one email or sending out one direct mail piece, you're screwing yourself. I mean, you've done all the hard work of finding the leads. You're not going to get a big close rate out of one piece.
Well, I'll tell you what on that. Kind of when that dawned on me is what we were seeing is we were sending out, we were spread too thin years ago as far as growing pains, and that just happens. But what we were doing is we were sending out one contact, and we were seeing that a month later, 2 months later, the people had looked at it, but they just kind of, they swept it aside. They were going through their emails or something and they would come across it again. So it was almost like a second contact, but we didn't mean to. And they said, hey, I just saw your email again and, I'd love to talk to you again. And so we thought, well, why not just purposefully do that? Why not, we send them emails, why not send them a physical mail? Or if we'd send them physical mail, why not make it a sequence to where, there's like 3 steps and you can make it fun or interesting or however you want to do it to where, like the 3D mail, they're getting certain steps along the way or whatever you're doing. But like you said, multiple times, and you stay in their head more often. I mean, look at the retargeting that people have. That's why it's so popular, is because you're going at them multiple times, and even TV commercials and everything that constantly happens, 10 times a day, you're going to see that product in your head. You're in Walmart and you're going to pull that monster off the shelf or whatever it is because you've seen it 50 times during the day. It's the same concept for getting a client.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can kind of grasp this strategy. I think where it kind of fails, though, at least where I've seen it fail, like people know they need to do multi-step, they need to follow up multiple times. Where I see it fail most often is pay-per-lead, right?
Yeah.
So somebody builds out an asset in X city, in X niche, and they pick up a client, right? So they make it happen one time. They get a list of all the people in the area. They solicit them, and they get a client, and then maybe the client doesn't work out, right? They stick around for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or however long, right? And then it's like, okay, now what? And they assume that the system's broke and they don't know what to do when they've already done it successfully. They've already sealed a client, right? So what do? That top 100 list, you guys should still have. You guys should still be able to use. Go do it again. Be able to show some new case studies, some more results. And I think that so many people don't really use their lists as assets in their business. And I think that you need to be looking at those lists as assets in your business.
And the reason why you're setting up PPL to begin with, it's a little bit different animal than a straight up SEO or marketing campaign, because you own the asset, or at least you should be owning some sort of, digital properties that you can control, because things do happen. Your client could go out of business, could be totally out of your control. You could be sending him amazing leads and something could happen, or you could have a couple failures and you just need to move on to somebody else. Whatever the deal is, you need to own those. And as long as you have that list, just churn it out again and contact somebody else and get somebody else on. And hopefully along the way, if you did something wrong, you learn, okay, probably shouldn't do that again. I'll be more solid on this next guy, because there's so much business out there, which is why we can generate 2,000 leads a month or more, is because there's thousands of businesses created every month. And your list that you have, you could even refresh that list, get all the contact information again, and you might grow your list, and find that it's even easier to get that next PPL client. It's definitely important to keep those lists, follow up, and like you said, the system isn't necessarily broken if it fails you one time.
Exactly. Let's move on to rebuttals. It seems like whenever I talk about rebuttals, everybody just absolutely loves it. So let's talk about some lead gen rebuttals, some SEO rebuttals as well, and kind of the common ones that you guys are getting in your business specifically,
Mhm.
and how you guys are handling them. But before we get into that, I want to talk about why people have rebuttals. Right. So like if we're out and we're doing a pitch, why are we getting rebuttals? And I think that so many people are stuck on, I don't know what to say when I get a rebuttal. And they are so afraid that they don't even make a sales call.
Yeah.
Right. Because they are scared that they're not going to know what to say and they're going to be put on the spot. Right. And so if you're a really good presenter, if you're a really good pitcher, you shouldn't be getting rebuttals. Okay, rebuttals are when people don't understand what you're pitching them, when you haven't done a really good job setting yourself up for the close. Okay, when you haven't already answered the questions that you knew were going to come up. And Byron, I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about the SEO proposal template that you guys went through is that is systematized to make the rebuttals, very, very slim. Right? It provides so much value and it takes you through all the steps of what if and alleviates a lot of the questions that you should be getting. Okay, so even if you're not selling SEO, go watch that video and go see psychologically what's going on in that whole process. It's super, super important.
It just systematizes the presentation process of, it doesn't matter if you're in the first contact, second contact, whatever it is. And if you have the opportunity to pull that up and to go over that, definitely go over that, because like Joe said, I mean, you're taking away most of the rebuttals that people have, and you're just presenting it right in front of their faces. Usually the common things such as, what am I getting for what I'm paying you? Well, it's right in the presentation. Why should I go with you? Well, because we're breaking it down to where, I mean, what other SEO company is saying, we're going to drive you 15 leads. It's going to bring X amount of revenue. And then, what you're paying us is 15% of that, or whatever it comes out to be. Those numbers are all right in there, and you can see it as you're presenting it, which makes it extremely easy for you to do with minimal error, and your prospect can see it as well, and you can send it to your prospect. So if they're a marketing person, a lot of the times I deal with marketing directors, and they're hiring us on as a contractor, and they send it to their boss, they print it out, or they have to show their partners. It's a great physical thing, a tangible thing to actually send them as well.
So I think that one of the things that people always run into is that they haven't really shown the value, right? And that's why they get a lot of rebuttals. So with the proposal template that you guys go through and you break down the traffic price and the conversion rates and how much traffic you should be getting and what's a lead worth, and really going through all those steps in the proposal, that really alleviates the value question, right? What am I getting? And why should I go with you versus somebody else? So I think that's really huge. Obviously, the other reason is your guys' crafty guarantee.
Yeah.
Which maybe we should talk about since we did in the last one.
Fair enough.
But a lot of things come back to that guarantee, right? So when somebody's on the edge, how do you seal that deal? And it comes back to a guarantee. So let's just high level talk about guarantees.
Okay.
And so the goal of a guarantee is to make obviously the prospect absolutely, make the deal unrefusable. Right. So it's like they just feel like it's so too good to be true that they can't even say no. And you've backed it up with a guarantee. And so I know that I saw a comment on the video. How can I guarantee SEO? And so let's break that down in terms of how you guys are doing that guarantee.
Cool. Well, the common guarantee that's used is we'll get you to number one. And that holds absolutely zero ground. And it really never did. It became a gimmick, and it started working, and it quickly faded away because now everybody hears that, $100 SEO number one. It's absolutely false. So, what we do is we take the amount of leads so statistically speaking, we put in all these numbers as far as their close rates, which we're very conservative on. We even lower that. We keep all these numbers extremely conservative to where it's a reasonable expectation, sometimes even lower expectations. So we undershoot it instead of, instead of trying to deliver something that we can't at first. And so the lead guarantee goes in, and let's say they need 10 leads to generate like $20,000 worth of business. And so we will guarantee in a certain amount of days, usually 90 days, sometimes 180 days, depending on the terms that we have, that they will get those 10 leads to statistically break even on the campaign, probably make some money over the top. So basically, if we don't give them those leads, then they have money back as well. And so the beautiful thing is, if you're doing SEO, if that's your vehicle to generate these leads, great. If your SEO isn't totally performing, all you do is you take some of that money and you put it towards paid traffic and you generate those leads to them. So at least if you fall flat on your face, you are delivering that guarantee. Obviously that's not the goal, but and that's not going to happen most of the time. The goal with that guarantee is to tell the client, look, you're going to get these leads whether we give you 10 times the leads or not. You're going to at least get this minimum. And at this minimum, our services are basically free to you, depending on the money that you get back, probably a little bit over the top. So, and if you don't deliver, then it's money back. So it's literally, you get back what you paid, or you get the leads in and you break even, and the referrals from the leads alone will probably grow their business even more in the future. So it's pretty much a no-brainer to these clients.
I mean, the big thing is as well is so let's say that it's only 3 months, and you said 3 to 6 months. So let's say it's only 3 months, and they're paying you $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right. You have $9,000 to generate 10 leads.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. So guys, that's
so
the key. Is you have to do a really, really good job. The great thing is that you guys have built it into the system, but you have to do a really, really good job building up the value in terms of what each lead is worth.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're breaking that down into their investment. Right. Yeah. So if it's it just makes it very, very simple to come out with a guarantee that makes a lot of sense to the business owner and gives you a boatload of room as well. Right. Yeah. Any of us in any niche can generate 10 leads for $9,000. Right. That's $900 a lead.
Yeah. And this is the beauty of it too. I mean, you're not guaranteeing rankings. You're not guaranteeing traffic. You're really not guaranteeing anything on those metrics, because in reality, whatever it takes to get those qualified leads to your client is the end result that they want. Of course, you're going to utilize probably PPC, SEO, YouTube videos, whatever your traffic sources are, and you may be utilizing multiple traffic sources in the same campaign. But I like to get away from the traffic increase guarantees, the ranking guarantees. I mean, traffic increase is a little better metric than measuring rankings, but it's still not ideal. The lead guarantees is where it's at, whether it's 10 leads, 20, 50, whatever the number is that makes sense. You guarantee those. The business owner they're getting contacts in that. The business owners who understand how business works, they know what we've been talking about. They know you have to be in front of prospects no matter what your industry is. If you're a lawyer or a roofer or anybody, you have to talk to people or you're not going to get business. So that's why it works so well.
So that lead guarantee is absolutely sick. You guys implement that, your conversion rates are going to jump when you're actually trying to close an actual deal. And it's going to end up making you guys a lot more money.
Yeah.
So let's talk about any other big rebuttals that you and your team are getting. So we've talked about guarantee, kind of why you guys, any other big ones that you guys are getting. I mean, the great thing, like I keep saying, is that you guys have done such a good job on building the proposal and everything else to kind of solve the rebuttals.
Yeah.
But any other big ones that you guys are seeing?
Honestly, most of them are solved. There's still those people who they do push it a little bit, and that you're always going to have some weird ones. But as far as like a common theme, if we do get rebuttals, it's usually the ones that kind of the higher level ones, like, well, how do we know this is going to work? And we do hear that, but then we go into the guarantee, and that usually shuts that down. We go over the numbers again, because some people, they need it explained a couple times, or if they don't truly understand the proposal as we're explaining it, it will become evident. And once it clicks, then those rebuttals definitely go away. So every now and then we get some of the standard rebuttals that should not happen, but that's usually because they didn't fully understand the presentation, and we explain the numbers again, and it kind of starts clicking in their head. And so other than that, there's a handful of specific reasons why deals fall through, but more often than not, I mean, more than 3/4 of the time, they get it with that proposal.
How are you guys structuring your guys' contracts too? Are you guys doing like 12 months, 6 months, month to month? What are you guys doing with that?
What I'm seeing is the corporate, more national clients, when you present this, they usually have their budgets for a year. And sometimes, we might even have to wait a month or two before they're out of a different contract. That happens sometimes. But then the cool thing is we're usually locked into 12 months. So it kind of depends on the industry we're working in. If it's a local guy, like you're supplying roofing leads, we usually do a month-to-month thing, just because but not really month to month, just because the goals are there for like 90 days, but we urge them to stay. But in all reality, if they're not happy within 30 days, they can get out of the contract. It's not really a contract, it's more of an agreement. So if it's kind of the blue collar industries, it's a little looser of a contract. It kind of just more so an agreement, but always the national stuff, like usually even e-commerce, if we do any of that, which is fewer these days, but we still do it, or a lot of the corporate stuff too. We're looking at a 6 to 12 month contract length.
Okay. So one of the things that I can help with that specifically is we always used to do like month-to-month contracts.
Yeah.
Then we pushed to yearly contracts, right? 12 months. Month-to-month sucked because cash flow was horrible. Yeah. 12-month contract sucked because it was horrible to close those deals. And so what we moved to that ended up killing everything that we ever did is we did a 12-month contract with a 3-month out. And we tied our goals, just like this system, right? We tied our goals to 3 months, right? So if they don't see the results in those 3 months, not only is it guaranteed, but they can cancel. They don't have to pay any for their money. Okay,
Perfect.
so basically we give them like a 2-week out, okay? And then it auto keeps going right into 12 months if they don't back out. Okay, so that's number one. But then number two is that it auto renews every year unless they cancel.
Nice.
This absolutely crushed it for us because by all means, if a customer comes to us and they're pissed and they're like, you guys are doing a shoddy job or whatever, we'll stop the contract, right? We're not going to be assholes about it. But what happens mostly is you're working with people you get on a very good relationship level. They don't cancel, and then they don't want to be the asshole that brings it up.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, or sorry, Byron, I just don't have the budget this year to do SEO and to do what you're doing. And they feel locked in, and so they just keep paying you. Yeah. And so when we started implementing this in our business, things just went crazy. So if you're doing SEO, do that 12-month with the 3-month out and tie your goals to that same timeline.
That's awesome. And that fits perfectly into the proposal because it's a goal-oriented proposal. It's either 90 days, sometimes 180, usually the 90-day. I mean, it's seamless. The presentation works seamlessly.
Yeah. The only problem with the 90 days is just if you get into some really, really crazy stuff where you're having to go kind of out of scope before you really start your scope. So let's say you're working on some e-com stuff and the on-page stuff is just absolutely horrible and you have to fix that before you can really start building links. What we would do is we'd do a standoff contract just to fix all of the shit. But we'd make them sign both contracts at once.
Cool.
Right. So that the SEO one wouldn't start for, let's say, 30 or 60 days. And we just kind of post-date the transaction. Yeah. But that's super key. That 12-month with the 3-month out, that fits perfectly in with your guys' system. I wanted to bring that up last time, but I thought it was a little overload.
Yeah.
So this works really, really well. I will I'll put in a link below this as well for that contract for you guys too.
Cool.
So cool. Let's talk about some lead gen deals. Obviously, for me and my crew, just talking about lead gen deals is like watching some porn. If you don't watch porn, sorry. But everybody gets super excited about just lead gen deals happening and kind of the makeup of the deals and just hearing about the success. So let's talk about, if you're open to it, a couple of your recent kind of lead gen deals.
Yeah,
and we can keep things obscured if you want. Maybe city instead of niche. So niche, I think, would help some people. But we can keep the cities obscured if you want.
Perfect. Well, one that comes to mind is a water restoration guy. It does, mold and water. He doesn't focus on fire usually for whatever reason that is, but he's water and mold. And so the deal on that one was a PPL deal, and he was a little bit skeptical because he had done SEO before, but which was a perfect segue for me to structure it into a paper call, and I basically got on the phone with him and I did this one personally. I don't always do them because I have a couple sales guys, but I did this one personally, and he was just ecstatic. He's basically at the end of the thing, it came down to, if his phone rings, then he pays us, and we had it structured to where he did have some money up front because he was on board with that. But that money, again, he was guaranteed to get a certain amount of leads. And so he was totally fine with it, because then again, if we got him 0 leads, he had no risk. And so that basically the calls started coming in, everything's good. And it's been going for a couple weeks now, and he's happy, so it worked out to $150 a call. And I mean, that's pretty good profit. I mean, imagine every time you get, whatever system you're using, you get that notification and it's like, boom, I probably just made $150, and I love that. So
let's talk about that real quick. Where did the deal kind of come from? If that's cool, is that from your guys' outbound prospecting stuff? Is that from a referral? And then how'd you arrive at the 150 number? And are there any, is that like a specific duration, anything over a specific amount of time, or is it just straight up anytime you get a phone call kind of deal?
Cool. Yeah. So as far as the source of it, this one was from our prospecting, our outreach. And so we regularly reach out to a lot of the service-based blue collar industries, because that's a lot of where PPL, I mean, to me, that's the core of PPL. Yeah. And I know you love that stuff. And I mean, we reached out specifically to restoration guys, to mold guys and subcontractors. And he was one of many who responded back. He was right in the lead funnel and just was really responsive. And so I personally got on the phone with him. Really nice guy. And he's in a pretty big city too. Here, it's a Western state city. He's in a pretty large city. So as far as generating the leads, I knew it wasn't going to be that big of an issue. And that's where I like to position myself as well, as, if it's a town of 10,000 people, you don't even really bother. You want to get those towns where you have the volume. And so that's first and foremost. And, where we arrived at the actual 150 was, one, it was based on numbers that we did plug into that proposal sheet. And it was also based on the average pay-per-click numbers, as far as, the cost per click and things like that. Because a lot of this was going to be, at first, was going to be PPC driven. And then, of course, we're building up all the assets because we didn't have anything in this particular city at the time. And that's the beautiful thing with PPL is, you are going to want to build up the SEO assets, but if you don't, and you're good with paid traffic, you can drive that paid traffic and get those leads the first week. And so that's what we're doing in this instance right here. So, it worked out great. And as far as like the qualifications that we had for a lead, it was anybody who had water damage in their house and they wanted a quote or an estimate, and they would call, leave their information. They had mold, or they thought they had mold, and they needed someone to come out and, cut a hole in their drywall, or however they detect that and check it out. And the length, we do like 20, I think it was 25 seconds on this as a phone call. And that's a pretty short phone call, but even if they schedule something and they click, that's a qualified lead. And then we make sure to tell them that the voicemails are qualified as well. So he he does emergency stuff. So he's got people don't always answer the phone, but he has a couple guys who are always on call. So they leave a voicemail. They say, hey, this is whoever, this is my number, my basement's flooded, or I've got mold and, everybody in my house is getting sick, hopefully not, but whatever it is, and that's qualified as well. So, and he's all over that. And, the next day, if he can't service them, he'll just call them up if it's a non-emergency and then schedule the appointment. If it is an emergency, usually they'll call back during the night, a few minutes later, and schedule something out. Of course, it's a higher cost, but he offers the 24/7 service. So we actually run the paid stuff 24/7 because of that fact. So works out good. I mean, we can get calls at 2 a.m. and I'm making money at 2 a.m. So
definitely. Out. So let's talk about just a little bit kind of the deal breakdown in terms of how you arrived at that 150 and just kind of the two different methods basically that you use there. I think that's super important. So the first one, the first kind of numbers that you ran were from like the what do you call it? The deal calculator, the Excel sheet that we gave you guys in the last one. And so basically you're looking at what's your average job, how many calls until close, and then breaking it down to a per lead fee, right? Yeah, so if it's $2,000, 1 in 10 close, it's $200 per lead.
Yep. Right? That's exactly what we're doing. Yep. And and that's what I explained to him on the phone is that, it actually worked out to be a little over 200 something. And he said, is there any way we could do anything about that? And I actually pulled up the cost per click for AdWords because he was a little bit savvy in this. So this might not happen all the time. He had done SEO and some paid stuff. And I said, look, we know how to do this. We're experts in paid traffic and SEO traffic. And so what we can do is, we were talking about numbers back and forth. I was showing him cost per clicks and we arrived at the 150. So it's a little less than the little over 200 that the spreadsheet spit out, but you're right in there. And the beautiful thing is on a lot of these PPL deals, you do have a little bit of leeway. Negotiations are a reality. You don't just ask for $5,000 a month and always get it. You purposefully start high. At least that's what we do. We start a little high, and a lot of people say, sure, that looks great. But there's that percentage of people who say, hey, can you work with us? And if people are on the fence, I even say, what's it going to take with this pricing to get our business? What are we going to have to do to earn your business and to work with you? And usually it's a pretty close number to what you've already presented. They just need to feel like they're getting a deal, whether they are or not,
Real quick, on the cost per click, are you doing any type of formula on that? Are you using that, their numbers, 1 in 10 gets a deal, and then multiplying that out and putting some fudge in there? Or any more info on that side of things?
Yeah, we're usually doing between 5 to 7 times what the average cost per click is. And so we'll take the big terms, just do the standard average, add them together, divide them out by the number. And then, we usually take 5 to 7 times that. It usually works out to be about 5 times, because the 7 times kind of gets 7-8 times kind of gets crazy. But, and it is based on their close rate a little bit, but I always take people, their close rates, with a grain of salt. If they say they do 50%, they probably don't, but sometimes they're close. And so like you said, you do 10, 20% of that. And that's definitely how we arrive at that. And some of it is just fudging it and throwing it out there to a point, but it's an educated, it's basically an educated thing. You don't just say, oh, $100 a lead and nothing about the industry. You got to have those numbers, in your head, and then you can make the educated statement to say, we're charging $150 a call. So
cool. So when you do collect a retainer up front, obviously if you can collect the retainer, always go for it, always do it. If you're going into a new niche, how do you come up with the retainer amount? So I'll tell you, like for us, if we already have a lead gen asset, and we're trying to get the retainer up front, we always try. We don't always get it. But if we have 2 different contractors that we're trying to seal, whoever's going to give us that money up front, or if one of them will, that's who's going to get the leads. But what we do is we just look at the current volume that we're getting and what would be qualified, and then multiply that times the lead price. And we're looking for a month of upfront money so that we don't have to do billing for the month.
Yeah. That's
So
usually
if you aren't doing something currently, right, like this water damage one, restoration one, how would you kind of factor that retainer? What would you be looking for?
I would personally be looking for a month. I mean, that's usually what we would do. It's based upon, and again, this is if you don't have the asset, so you don't have that historical data to see, I can get 30 calls a week from this. You don't already have that running. If we're estimating it, we do take the traffic that shows up in the keyword planner, and we usually do, and it kind of factors within the proposal sheet as well. You can put in, let's say, 5% of the total traffic volume, and you can estimate that you're going to close 10% of that 5% of traffic, or however you do it. And that's usually what we do. We get a conservative number to where we're expecting, if it's something like water damage, you probably won't get 30 calls a week necessarily, unless you're in a major, huge area. I mean, that's a lot of calls for water damage. You might, but say it's 15, 20 calls a week. We conservatively estimate that to where usually we're sending a little more leads than the upfront retainer is. So, like you said, you don't have to bill for the month. That's exactly what we do. So we try to cover that first month.
Cool, man. Any other lead gen deals besides this one come to mind? Anything else that's recent?
I had and I think I was mentioning,
or almost closed, maybe.
yeah, I think I was mentioning this to you, as I had that bail bondsman guy, and it was interesting because he, I'd never worked with a bail bondsman before, but he was talking to me about his calls, and he said 9 out of 10 calls he gets, he closes. And I was kind of, he seemed like a pretty down to earth guy, and I was kind of calling BS on him, not saying that's BS, but we were talking back and forth, and I think he literally does. That's one of those industries where he gets most of them, because people say, I need to bail someone out, and they go, and as long as he can work a deal with them and make it seem like they're getting a deal, kind of like we're doing to these people, he gets the sale. And so he's not closed yet, but I'm working him through the system. We're going to have a second call here soon, and it's going to be a fun one because, especially if I can keep pumping him calls. He told me he could handle 5 to 8 calls a day because it's easy to write up these bonds. So, I mean, basically he can handle an unlimited amount of calls that I can provide in that city, because there always is a cap, but I'm pretty sure any calls I throw at the guy, he's going to take, because if he's truly closing, even if he's closing 5 out of 10, he's going to explode his business.
So what are you looking for in terms of numbers there based upon your research?
I'm looking to that one. I'm looking like 50 to 80 a lead. It's not as much as something like water restoration, but still, I mean, that's pretty good. I'm thinking he'll be in the 50 to 60 realm, somewhere around there. I dropped some numbers, and he really didn't have any objections whatsoever at about the 50, 60 per lead range. So, and just looking at what it takes on the paid traffic side to generate that, and also the city that he's in is not that competitive compared to what's out there. There's not a lot of bail bond sites out there. In fact, his site is actually ranking pretty well already, which is how he gets a lot of his calls. So if we rank another website right there, even if it's below his, I mean, we're just going to capture more calls, and they're going to go right to him. So he'll have 2 properties on the first page.
I was muted. I think that brings up like something really cool, what you talked about, the two properties.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I got started in lead gen. So we're doing AdWords for an appliance repair company that was in 15 cities. They weren't always in 15, but we scaled them. I think they were over 20 by the time we stopped working with them. But basically, you can only hit a certain point in volume before the cost for the customer just starts to get astronomical. Right? It's just a declining return. And you have to decide, am I willing to pay that for more, or am I just kind of topping out at that per lead price? And so our customer was set that they couldn't pay more. We were topping them out. They weren't willing to pay more. And they came to us and they're like, what can we do? And so we're like, well, why don't we just set up a site for you, and we know the numbers. Let's put you at X per call, and we'll just bake in the cost that we already know is there, and anything, put in a little extra room for us so that we can manage the account, and we'll run the AdWords account, we'll set up the website, and we'll just go from there. And I mean, literally, like a couple days, the deal was signed from us just bringing it up, and that's kind of how we stumbled into lead gen. I mean, but if you have a current SEO client or AdWords client that you're just rocking it for, right, and they're trying to double their traffic, they're trying to, just get more, and you guys are kind of at a standstill, one of the easiest ways to get into pay per lead is to pitch them like I pitched my client, right? We can basically double if we just keep doing what we're doing, and I build out another site. And we did. I mean, it ended up long-term being a really bad thing. They couldn't handle all of the business that we were sending them. I think something like, between both accounts, they were doing something like, 12, 15,000 calls a month. It was some big growing pains for sure. But a super easy way to get into pay per lead.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Well, and especially those, and you got to remember too, even if you're getting, 15, 20 bucks a call, I know there's some people out there who they always go after the big fish, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but imagine you're getting 200-300 calls a week and you're getting 15, 20 bucks a call, and, they have the capacity to handle that, the business you're working with. I'll take that all day long. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because at the end of the day, you're supplying qualified leads to them. And if they can service them and they're a good client, I mean, why not? Because sometimes it's a lot easier to get 200 calls for 15 each in a smaller niche than it is even to get 10 calls for a niche where it might cost a few hundred per call. Those are worth it when you can get the big ones, but consistent small little deals like that, I mean, not small deals that you can get a lot of money per month, but small as in the per call price. I do those all day long.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like appliance repair and little service-based businesses like that, I mean, they don't have a huge ticket amount, right? The average job isn't that valuable. However, they do a boatload of volume. So like our Jacksonville appliance site does anywhere from like 38, 39 calls a week to 60 calls a week. And I mean, you can get paid 20 to 30 bucks a service call, no problem. And so, I mean, that one's a nice little earner, and we don't ever touch it. I mean, I have literally, it got hacked a couple weeks ago. I put in a ticket to the cPanel host and was like, fix this. And that's the only thing that we've done basically in 3 years for the site.
Nice. That's cool.
So, I mean, that's as hands-off as it kind of gets. So we're happy to do stuff like that that's volume-based, especially once we have kind of the earned media or the earned traffic, and it's just kind of set and forget.
Absolutely. And those are the best clients too. They're the ones that, you've got their lead gen system set up. They answer the phones. They know that you are the source of those calls, and you just bill them every month. And if you don't have to talk to them for 6 months or a year, that means they're happy. That means they're making money and they're happy to pay the bill, and they don't even need to speak with you. So those are some of the best clients to have. We have some of those where, the less we speak, the happier. I know that's the happier that they are, so it's a beautiful thing.
Definitely love those clients.
Yeah.
I have a client that we signed that we talked to every month. We had a meeting for the first 4 months. Yeah. And then for 3 years after that, we only had 2 meetings.
That's awesome. Nice.
And it would be like, man, we haven't talked in like a year. We should probably jump on a call, shouldn't we? We jump on the call and, it's like, so what have you guys been up to? Not much. I mean, you guys are crushing it, right? Yep, we're crushing it. Okay, cool. Let's talk soon. A year and a half later, the same type of conversation.
Oh, we haven't talked in a while. Yeah.
We haven't talked in like a year and a half. We should probably jump on a call, right? So definitely those are the best ones for sure. So cool, man. I think that kind of wraps it up, unless you have anything else to add. We're at almost an hour here.
Yeah, I don't think so. Just one thing is just get that contact. That's the most important thing. If you're struggling in closing anything, if you can't bring any deals in, getting yourself in front of businesses, however that is the most important thing. And that's basically, I think, a huge big picture sum up of what we've talked about is, to get deals in, you get that exposure, you get those prospects in the door. So
yeah, you got to start talking to people.
You do.
Yep. Don't be a hermit crab. Get out of your shell.
Yep.
Talk to people on the phone.
Yep.
And
And
if
I'm a
you do
hermit
the
crab.
system right,
Yeah.
you're a hermit crab.
I'm kind of an introvert, but over the years I've decided that if I want to make money, then you can't be an introvert.
Definitely, definitely. Cool, man. So thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you spending the last hour with me. I know my crew is going to absolutely dig it. And
Good.
let me know how I can help you in your business, buddy.
Okay, sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Take it easy, fellas. Have an awesome day.